Interview, Part 2. Can you explain a bit?
Look, if you ask your child to clean their room and then check their room after they said they're done, what might you find? Maybe they picked up their clothes from the floor and put their toys in a box. But if they left pizza crumbs on the floor and a sticky leftover stain from their soda on their nightstand, did they really clean the room? To them, they carried their own meaning of clean. And you carried your own meaning, even though the word clean is a simple word we use every day. Does this help?
Wait. The meanings I'm talking about are written in the dictionary. Or I can look up words on Google and the meanings will pop up. When I look you up, the meanings are spelled out and explained. And based on what the dictionary says, my buddies and I can agree on the meaning and have a conversation. Otherwise, if, as you say, we each carry a meaning, then how do we agree on what a word means? Would it not be tough to talk with others and be on the same page? I kind of get what you're trying to explain about me carrying the meaning, not a word. But then how should we relate to the meanings in a dictionary?
That's a good question. If you don't mind, I'll share a brief history about myself. I think it will help illustrate what I'm about and clarify my role as a word. Since you mentioned a dictionary, I'll talk about that. But you have to keep in mind that long before dictionaries, there were other ways by which people and other natural beings communicated. At a certain point in history, humans developed symbols to use as ways to share information. They agreed on what specific symbols and sounds meant. Eventually, symbols evolved into words, and dictionaries were devised with the intent to capture the meanings of words so they could be used for people to interact. Specifically, my name was given to me in English sometime around the 1600s or 1700s as far as I can recall, which is not too long ago considering humans have used language way before then. My name was originally French, set as Faillir in one of the first dictionaries ever published. I'm not sure how the people in charge of collecting words into a volume came up with the actual sound and spelling, but I suspect they were all very educated and knowledgeable. I also suspect that they were grumpy old men. I mean, really, think of the tasks and the work and the times. How many women were well educated then? Most were assigned to taking care of the home. Knowledge of linguistics was often limited to few experts who could spend the time to study words, their origins, and their meanings. Remember also that at the time my name was set in the dictionary, Latin was thought of as a common language, and so many word names in English somehow have a Latin source, and also Greek or German sometimes. So many words in the English dictionary were derived from other languages. Hold on, sorry, I intended to be brief, but I want my explanation to be as useful as possible, okay?
Yes, please go on.
When these guys decided to add my name to their list of words, they selected only a few meanings. But the original French word had so many more descriptions for my name, so many ways to interpret. However, they narrowed down the definitions and limited the choices. Maybe you can later share a more complete list of meanings with your listeners, Robin. I still believe that what they discussed about faillir was meant to have a positive connotation as an opportunity, a gap to be filled. Perhaps for people to look at my name and think how something could be improved, that a task committed to could be finished, completed, or perhaps for someone to not have to pay compensation for a task not done according to an expectation, whether incomplete or wrong. It alluded to an opportunity for asking for a corrective, a reparation, something not finished or not done. By the way, it could be that some of the same grumpy old men defining the meanings of words were influenced by their religious beliefs. Think how in those days, there was a lot of discussion was about what was sinful, what was right or wrong, good or bad. Words and their meanings were probably influenced by the prevailing mindset of the times. So perhaps part of faillir could be associated with right and wrong, or even what is sinful or not. The important part is that based on their own preference, they ignored other possible meanings. Do you follow, Robin? Is this too much information?
No, yes, it's quite interesting. Many of my listeners focus on one single definition because most of our English dictionaries limited the meanings to just a few. Might not be the best influence, but I think that you're alluding to is that the meanings in the dictionary were set by certain folks in certain circumstances. And it's interesting that you mentioned the original French version with particular intended meanings. I think the meanings of your name today are even more different.
Well, that is a key point that I'd like to bring across. When circumstances change, the meaning of a word can also change. Remember, I'm just a tool. Meanings are very relevant to the conditions around the time they were agreed to be useful and serve a group of people based on their needs then. So, if the need changes, one can adapt and use the tool in a different way.
Yes, that makes sense. I'm not sure how your name evolved from French to English. I guess I could look it up later. But what I think is that the English version does not always come off as positive. It's associated with the idea of being incompetent, a loser, or defeated. And it's like an absolute idea, an either fail or succeed. There's no in between, no opening to, as you said, to correct something or offer compensation. Maybe my thinking is also based on the circumstances of when I first heard the word. And I recall it was not a very positive situation. For example, I heard an aunt tell my dad how he was a failure. Maybe she even said total failure. Some of my teachers in school also told kids that they were failures when they did not give a correct answer to a question. Thinking back, these were very judgmental people, but nonetheless, the word stuck with me in a negative sense, and either or, black and white, the opposite of success. I guess this is also why I wanted to talk to you. Many of my listeners have asked questions about ways to improve and be successful, and your name always comes up as an obstacle. Do you have any suggestions?
I think I do. I would start with the last thing you mentioned about success and my name. It's like saying that black and white are opposites, when in fact, each color has its own properties. White is a name given to a particular color with a hue that reflects light completely and disperses it all. Black is a name given to a color that lacks hue and absorbs all light without reflecting any light rays. Even though they're two distinct shades of color, each with their own characteristics, often they are thought of as opposites to one another. But the written descriptions relate to extremes, where either all light gets reflected or zero light gets reflected. Have you seen snow? You say it's white, but it reflects only 70 to 80% of light, not all. And most surfaces you call black also reflect some light depending on the type and finish of the surface. The point is not to confuse the proposed written meanings with absolute ideas. The way these colors are used in language to compare with the situation has created the false impression that they are actual opposites. Might be useful in some situations, but not useful in all. Just because it's written in a book doesn't mean it's true. Which relates to your question, Robin. People think that success and my name are opposites, but this is really not so. The two words can be related, however, they do not necessarily represent the flip side of the other. Success can mean different things to different people. To some, it can be money. To others, it's health, family, or good friends. Does this help?
Sure, it's an interesting point of view. I personally think that having spare time is a great measure of success, especially if it's used to learn and help others. Yet my typical listener is more interested in money as a measure of success, although a few do talk about family. It's like they say that the grass is always greener on the other side. It's an incorrect comparison. Perhaps the grass is different on the other side, but not necessarily better or worse. Besides, it's tough to know what is really beneath the face of the success we perceive in others. When we're highlighting only the good, at the same time, we're ignoring the mistakes they made along the way, or the internal struggles they still carry. I guess you're suggesting pondering a bit more on how we define success, as well as keeping that definition independent of your name?
That could be one way. There may be other ways too. But the principle behind this is about what you stated just now, about different preferences and points of view. It's a matter of individual perspective. You can choose to view things your own unique way, and based on your particular attitude and intent, you will get different responses. So, if you really inspect a word more closely, You might find a way for it to be useful to you and helpful in your quest toward success, whatever you define success to mean for you. It is your choice if you want to stop walking in the shadow of other people's words.
Walking in the shadow of other people's words. Interesting. I had never heard that before. Thank you. I'll write that one down. Be yourself. Everyone else is already taken. Oscar Wilde.